So Roxy, this word privilege, what does that include in your mind? Lots of times I've heard it referred to in relation to race, but it's actually a much bigger topic than that. Could you speak to that?
A lot of times people are a little bit confused about what we mean when we talk about the word privilege. What exactly does that refer to? And privilege is very wide. Privilege itself just refers to one group, one person having access to more resources than another group or person. And there are many different ways in which this can show up. When I lived in North Carolina, I was not a religious person, so I wasn't part of the Christian community there. And in terms of finding community and finding opportunities for my children to connect with their peers, we were excluded from a lot of events because we didn't belong to a religious community. So belonging to a certain religion in North Carolina was very helpful in giving someone access to resources that you would not otherwise have. The same time, as I was in North Carolina, I was a woman with a PhD. And so I had a lot of respect, and people were much more willing to listen to me and to solicit my ideas than I saw would happen with the prisoners that I worked with who didn't have PhDs, who didn't have a certain flow of communication. So my education and my comfort in speaking was a privilege that allowed me to be heard and have my opinions matter in a way that other people didn't have, simply because of their education. Other ways that we might have privilege have to do with our gender. In some communities and some cultures, men have more privilege, and there are a few communities and cultures where women have more privilege, where people are more likely to want to hear your opinion because of your gender. Privilege can refer to race. Absolutely, privilege can refer to income. If I have a lot of money, I have a lot of freedom to be able to do some of the things that I want to do in life. Does it mean that I have complete privilege in every aspect of my life? Absolutely not. I know people who have a lot of money and who struggle with mental health issues. Mental health and my ability to understand what I need and to talk about it and to advocate for myself is a privilege that's independent of wealth. Having wealth can make certain things more available to me, but there are many different ways that our privileges intersect and impact how we can show up in the world. So privilege is really just about, do I have the resources I need to accomplish what it is that I'm hoping to accomplish? And especially when we talk about privilege from a systemic way, it looks at how being a member of a group gives me access to those resources that's different from the resources that I have as an individual. When I think about privilege, I can think about privilege on many different levels. There are privileges that I might experience as an individual. So as an individual, I earned a PhD. As an individual, I'm very comfortable with speaking. I'm very comfortable in showing up and talking in front of groups. Those abilities give me access to certain things. My opinions are listened to. I can get myself heard in a crowd. Where privilege becomes really important is when we talk about the systemic allocation of resources to one group versus another. So as a Black person, when I walk into certain settings, people don't listen to me, or they assume that I'm there as a help or I'm there as an administration person. And when this happens continuously over time to people solely because of their membership in a certain group, and especially when we don't recognize it's happening if we're not a member of that group, we end up with some very tragic consequences. America is founded on this belief of individual merit and that we get what we deserve because of our individual efforts. And it doesn't often recognize that even being able to leverage skills and resources that an individual might have can be constrained because of membership in a certain group. And the freedom to be able to exercise our resources is in itself a privilege that some groups have relative to others. And that's why it's so important to be able to think about, is there something systemic going on in this community that I belong to? When I think about the trainer community, the NVC community, for instance, I put on workshops, and if I truly want to see NVC spread in the world, I need to think about who has the resources and the ability to come to NVC workshops. Most of the NVC workshops I go to are female and middle class to upper class folks. And I don't think it's because only women and only middle class and upper class folks are interested in NVC. I think that there is a systemic difference in who has access to the money and the time off from work to allow them to come to a workshop, and who has been continuously told that paying attention to emotional well-being is important. And that's part of the gender difference. So there are some ways that our systemic access to resources, what I'm calling privilege, impacts how we show up and what we're able to accomplish.